my side, Chair.
Yeah, good morning and welcome, Mrs. Graham, and it's good to see you here. And you've got some additional material for us?
I brought some copies of my presentation.
Oh, what you're going to present on, okay.
Yeah.
Now, hang on, what are we doing there? So we'll just set you up here for 10 minutes. You know the drill, 10 minutes, and I'll tell you when 2 minutes arrive. And if you'd like us to ask you some questions, please allow for that in your presentation.
Thank you.
But good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is June Graham. I live in Taradale. I've attended many meetings with respect to the Tukitook Choices, Plan Change 6 and the Ruataniwha Water Storage Scheme. I began to think I was a fitting, actually. I've read many important documents, including the Water Quality in New Zealand, Land Use and Nutrient Policy by the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment. That was in November 2013, and New Zealand's Changing Climate and Oceans by the Chief Science Officer, July 2013. The meetings I've attended and documents provide the basis for my submission. I'm not against water management. I support it, but I consider that there are better long-term alternatives than water storage. Landcare has many examples. A fraction of the millions of dollars necessary for this dam project would be better spent for soil health improvement and other farming practices that would contribute to the health of the Tukitook River. These changes would be more responsive to the major climatic changes expected. As a person with a long-standing interest in Hawke's Bay Regional Council, I have been concerned at the lack of transparency as to the way information has been forthcoming with respect to the project. It's been a moving feast, especially for us members of the public. It appears Council is prepared to make a commitment without adequate information. As your own report states in Item 8, Hawke's Bay Regional Council of Wednesday, May the 28th, the subject was the Deloitte peer review of HBRC Limited. The Ruataniwha, I'm starting to stutter, I better take a deep breath. The RWSS business case, paragraph 10 says, Deloitte notes that three major moving parts of the proposal, namely the construction contract, the required level of initial contracted water and the capital structure have yet to be finalised. They also state that it is not unusual for projects of this nature to have a degree of uncertainty right up to the point of financial close. Given this situation, it would be appropriate for Council to retain their services to undertake a final assessment of the proposal should there be any material change between the base case and the situation at the financial close. There's also an item on the same agenda on page 13, and it's in the recommendation, the Council's recommendation. It says very much the same thing. I won't be able to find it quickly because I'm looking for it. Yes. Notes that the further report will be required from Deloitte when the final Ruataniwha Storage Scheme business case, including the capital structure, has been finalised in HBRC Limited. Well, the public aren't going to see that report until it's too late. It would appear the Regional Council has predetermined the matter before hearing all of the relevant information. This was also on the 28th of May agenda, item 5.18. It's in attachment 6. The most common risks of non-pecuniary bias are when your statements of conduct indicate that you have predetermined the matter before hearing all the relevant information. If there are failures in some ways, either to complete the dam or with large operating costs or farmer default, where will HBRC obtain the funding to complete the project or continue its operation? The previous speaker gave a very good, what I feel is a warning to you all on the future. I have observed that HBRC and HBRC staff have difficulties with the Board of Inquiry findings. I suggest a time-out till it is confirmed. It is my observation that the Ruataniwha storage scheme is not consistent with the findings of the Environmental Commissioner, that the approval process to date has the appearance of being predetermined and has not taken account of future financial risks. Thus, I ask Council not to approve investment in the Ruataniwha water scheme. I would like to add, I'm an ex-public servant, so I understand the lines of control, and I make no criticism of any staff or any councillors, but to me, the policy side and the management side of council they've got a grey area, and I put it down to, I'm rather embarrassed about saying this, I put it down to the overstepping the mark in delegation. As a policy arm of council, I feel you have delegated in the previous councils more powers to the working arm of council than they should have had. I have no doubt that they're all very good people and hard-working, and I have great admiration for Liz and her staff. But I think you have to be very careful that you haven't over the years delegated too much responsibility to what are public servants whom we employ. That's what I had to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Graham. Okay, we've got 4 minutes left, so some questions. Councillor Barker.
Thank you very much for your presentation, June. Very thoughtful. Could I ask you a question about the process for the council making its decision? Do you believe that when the council makes its decision about the $80 million to invest or not in the Ruataniwha water storage scheme, that it should exercise the highest standards of fiduciary duties, that it should have before it all of the information, business plan, business case, with all the numbers completely updated with no exceptions, and that the regional councillors should assure for themselves that all of the conditions precedent are met, including assuring for themselves that the 40 million cubic metres necessary is both contracted for supply unconditionally and contracted to take unconditionally?
That's not always an easy question for somebody like me to answer. I know you're all people of integrity, and I have no doubt about your skills to make these decisions, but it seems to me over the past few months the cart has become before the horse. I don't know whether that answers your question, but too many times information has changed along the way, and I sit at the back there and I see by body language that quite a few have knowledge that others haven't got. Now, I might be completely wrong, but when you sit at the back you see an awful lot that you don't perhaps see round the table because you're conversing. I think it's sad we've reached this point that we have to query our working staff and our councillors' decisions. I'm not really answering your question because I just find it too difficult to answer.
Thank you. You've answered it.
Thank you. 2 minutes ago, Councillor Bevan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, June, for your submission. As one of the longest running attendees of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council's meetings, your opinions are not to be taken lightly, so I appreciate your comments. It seems to me that your principal concern that you're raising with us is the timing of all of this, and the fact that there's still an awful lot of moving parts which are not yet fixed, and therefore it's difficult for the public to understand this whole thing. Would you feel more comfortable if a final decision by this council was left until some of those moving parts are better fixed?
For me, it's been a bit one-sided because I firmly believe that farmers have to find alternatives to their practices now. I attended the irrigation conference. Cost me $300 and something, I might add, and I attended for a day to listen to Rod Oram and to Andrew giving his spiel. And when it was opened, the man from irrigation said, irrigation is wonderful, we must have irrigation, but not to the detriment of the environment. And I thought, wonderful, wonderful. Then I pictured pivot irrigations, and irrigation is big business, and it is so I'm not answering your question, am I? But land care has alternatives which work just as well as irrigation. There are examples in Australia, and it's vastly different, of course. The Ruataniwha Plains are on a wind. The wind comes off the mountains, doesn't it? Whips across the plains. And farmers have found in Australia that by planting trees, they can use those progressively for timber or sales, altering the size of their paddocks. They don't need to irrigate as much by planting different grasses and all. So I feel not enough thought has been given to an alternative. I'm sorry, I really haven't answered your question.
You've done very well, Mrs. Graham. Thank you very much. And you've given us a lot of food for thought, so thank you.
Thank you. I hope to do that.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This is a procedural matter. Sorry, Jen.
That's all right.
Yeah. I just feel it's a little unfair for Councillor Barker to be asking his
question
I
first.
won't call them patsy questions, his repetitive questions. The question itself takes about a minute in itself, and that's taking up time, which is preventing other people from asking questions.
Okay.
I think he should be the last to ask the question, not the first.
Thank you. I'm not asking for a reply. I will deal with that. Okay, next submitter.